So, welcome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Small Biz Strategy Stream. The purpose of this stream is to ultimately give people, answer people's questions when it comes to their overall challenges in their business in a live platform in real time. As a small business strategist, this is the platform where I shine the most, and I probably give the most value when it comes to providing value to my clients on a one-on-one basis from a strategic manner. So what I wanted to do is demonstrate more of that and help you guys out, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on my Facebook group, or if it's even on YouTube. There's tons of people who are business owners. There are even more business owners out there that are having challenges that keeps them in a holding pattern when it comes to moving forward with regards to their business. So what this platform will do is give those business owners a platform where I can serve them at the overall highest level so they can move their business forward, right? So since this is the first live stream that I've done specifically geared towards small business, I got a lot of questions, but a lot of the questions were geared towards funding, specifically some of the misconceptions that new business owners are having when it comes to funding. So what I wanted to do for this live stream, at least for the first half of it, is to give my 5 myths or misconceptions that a lot of new business owners are having when it comes to funding, and some solutions to point them in the right direction. Now, let me have a disclaimer. I am not a funder in any way, shape, or form, but based off of the consultations and based off of the coaching sessions that I have, I'm starting to see a lot of similarities when it comes to funding for new business owners. So even before I get into the 5 misconceptions, launching a business, when it comes to social media and things that you see forward facing, launching a business is exciting. And you have, even when you first start out, as long as you have your quote unquote, your LLC, your EIN number, and a couple of other things, you are prime prep ready to go to succeed when it comes to funding. And that's not the case at all. Don't let some of this information that you are seeing online misconstrued you, right? It is not hard to get funding, but at the same time, it is not as easy as how most people are, how most people are presenting it in any way, shape, or form, right? I've been in business for over 10 years, and based off of the clients and some of the ups and downs I've seen with people when it comes to funding, it is a road that is not easily paved, but you need money to make money in your business. But most people on social media who are teaching you to get funding, they think it's easy as 1 + 1 = 2, but in actuality, it's not. So what I'm going to do is debunk some of those myths and give you a little bit more direction on how you should prepare yourself as a new business owner when it comes to overall funding. Okay. So the first misconception is only the rich or well-connected entrepreneurs get funded. Now, when you are well connected, you have access to resources. Resources, especially when it comes to business, you have resources to, you know, banks and other funding organizations that have money, or you have access to people that have money that are willing to loan you that money based off of a certain criteria, right? Regardless if the rich and people who are well connected, it is not as simple as, hey, I need $50,000, write me a check this evening. Especially when it comes to the person that's lending them the money, whether they're going from a lending from a bank or just from a personal. They will want to have certain pieces of information that I will talk about later to showcase, one, that this is a real business and it's not a scam or it's just not a fabricated idea. Number two, there is a means and a scheduled means on how you're going to pay that person back. It's not just, okay, give you the money whenever. And number three, what you are going to do with that money. This isn't Shark Tank, right? Most people who look at Shark Tank, they think, okay, they have a deal, they can split it 4 ways or get 20 or 30%. There are other things that are going on in the background that you are not seeing that even gets the investors to the point where, should I even invest my hard-earned money into this overall business? It's not as easy as what you think. And most deals, when it comes to lending and funding, they don't occur in that 5 to 10 minute time frame that you see on there. But you do not want to have the misconception, if you're just starting out and you're not already rich or you're not well connected, you can't get funded. There are other ways that you can actually go about it. One of the ways when it comes to preparation is having a business plan. And most people want to start a business, but they don't have a business plan, which really doesn't make any sense to me. Or they want the money and they don't want to go through the process of putting the business plan together. But the business plan is the justification on what type of business you want, what you're going to do, but specifically when it comes to the funding, how much money you need, how you're going to use that money, and more importantly, how you're going to pay that back in a certain amount of time. So if you are a new business owner and you're thinking about funding, or you have an understanding that you're going to need some sort of funding for your business, but you don't have a business plan, I would say that will probably be the first step. You wouldn't lend anybody money just as a human being. You wouldn't lend anybody any money not knowing when they're going to give that money back. And in some instances, what they're going to use their overall money for. If you don't have that information at the bare minimum, you're going to be very hesitant on getting that information. But just because you are starting out and you are not rich and famous and you're not well connected, there are other means and other avenues on how you can get funding, but you necessarily have to have a certain level of preparation before you move forward. Misconception number two, people think that banks are the only or the primary source of getting funding, which couldn't be further from the truth. Getting a loan from the bank is a specific avenue to get this funding, but it's not the primary. There's not the primary source. As an example, some other examples are angel investors, venture capitalists, government grants. You can also do crowdfunding, right? So most people just stop and think, okay, I don't have a bank account or I don't have a relationship with a bank, but that's going to be the only way for me to fund my business. But there are other ways to do it. And one of the most reliable ways to fund your business, but it's not as sexy as going and getting a grant or going to a bank, is possibly funding it yourself. Meaning, if you have a product or a service, get out there and start it off as a side hustle, and the money that you bring in from the side hustle, which will ultimately allude to a business, utilize the funding that you get based off of the product or the service that you are selling, immediately put that back into the business, right? It's one of those it's like a staircase, right? If you make $500 from your side hustle, be privy enough to reinvest at least $50 to $100 back into the business to get you to the next step, right? Once again, it's that process. It's very reliable because what you bring in, you will spend that on the business. But once again, that's a form of self-funding as opposed to doing what most people do, or what most people were projecting they're doing, is going after loans, grants, and things of that nature. But be very strategic on what percentage of the funding that you need you're going to actually use that. For example, what I tell some of my clients is, instead of just solely relying on one source, for example, a bank, break it down in quarters. For example, 1/4 will be 1/4 of the funding that you would need. You can use that by funding your overall self, whether if you're working a 9 to 5, or you're taking what you have absorbed or what you have gained from the clients that you already had, take some of that money and apply it back to the business. Another quarter would be an actual bank. So instead of you just going after an overwhelming amount of money, take 25% of the total amount that you project that you need and use that as a strategy to say, okay, if I'm looking for $10,000 as an example, you know for a fact that 2,500 of that could go from, to kind of get that from a bank. So it's not as overwhelming as saying that you need $10,000 or whatever the amount may be, but only a quarter of that you can specifically use that to solicit banks. Another 25% could be investors. Are there anybody in your circle or in your network of people that will be willing to give you a fraction of what you need? Once again, if it's $10,000 that you need to start this business, can you approach them and say, I only need 2,500? And before I even get to the last one, this overall strategy, you can use this to stack on top of each other to get additional funding. For example, if you, as an example, $10,000, if you say that you need $10,000 and you've already saved up 2,500, and then you go to this investor or someone who has the money, you can let him or her know, I've already saved up a quarter of the money, so I would need additional quarter. With you having that and stacking it on top of each other, that shows that you have some sort of skin in the game, and you're just not looking and having your hand out asking for money. And the last 25% could also be going for government grants and other things. I have a grant writer who's a good friend of mine, and shout out to Lisa. Lisa, if you're looking at this, Lisa Maxwell is a great grant writer. She secured, for at least for one of her clients, she secured at least $20,000 worth of funding. So if you are looking for a grant writer, you are serious, put your information in the chat so I can forward that information over to her. But you have to be serious, because she is a serious business owner, and she is an individual that is able to get individuals funding based off of her grant writing services. But even if you wanted to pursue a grant writer, have an overall plan, just and know for a fact that you're going to have to pay him or her to actually gain access to the funding, gain access to the grant writing funding that they overall have. But you can use that overall strategy while you stack, one source on top of the other to get the total amount. So you're not just overwhelming someone, and even more importantly, overwhelming yourself, knowing that you have this huge number to get. But even in my business, for the first couple of years, I fueled my own business, whether it's based off of the job that I had. I took a golden rule for me was I took 10% of my earnings from the job and employed that right back into the business. And I took 50% of what I generated from clients from the business and put that right back into the business. It's investing. So it gets to the point where even though I didn't have all the funding that I needed, I used the funding that I had to get me to the next step, right? The next misconception is you need a perfect credit score to get funded. And I think this is where most people trip themselves up with. You need to have good credit, because the good credit, most people do not understand how leveraging credit the right way can help fund your overall business. But if you set up your business in the proper manner, meaning you have an official business, whether it's a LLC, a S Corp, or C Corp, or some sort of registered business, and you have your EIN number, you can use those pieces of information and source other funding areas so you can get some of the funding that you need. What I see now